Nice to meet you, Lucy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Okay. So, we're interviewing you for the research assistant position at Center for Social Impact. I'm sure you're familiar with what the job entails, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So we're looking for somebody who has knowledge in statistics and economics, someone with spreadsheet proficiency and good computer skills, someone who can work independently and as a team. So, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm working on my bachelor's degree in accounting with a minor in business management here at Utah Valley University. And I'm also currently serving as student chief inclusion officer at the school. So it's a brand new position, and I've helped create and establish the duties and framework for this role. I've also been able to learn from and connect with people from all walks of life and cultures, and it's really taught me to be involved and passionate for community advocacy. I've also had the opportunity to sit in committees with university executives and see firsthand how initiatives and policy changes are pushed university-wide. I have a strong work ethic and unique perspective that I think will be an asset to your organization, and I'm really excited to be considered for this position.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's get started. I'm going to ask you some questions. It should take about 10-15 minutes. I will be taking notes as we go, just so I can remember a little bit about you. But yeah, perfect. Okay, so tell me about a time you showed initiative. What prompted you to get started, and what were the results?
Well, when I was working my social media internship, my supervisor wanted us to highlight the new employees for our school. And we created a social media schedule, kind of noting when we would post what highlights, and essentially what would be in the highlights was a photo of the new employee and their position. So we created the schedule, and I was scrolling through social media, and I saw something that really inspired me to do interviews, to do something more for these highlights. So I explained to my supervisor that it would be a good idea, and I offered to do these short interviews, just 10 to 15 minute interviews. What I wanted was to really get to know the new employees outside of their position and face, and I thought it would also be helpful to let them know that we really cared about getting to know them. So I scheduled these interviews, and I actually was able to learn a lot of interesting things about the new employees. One of the administrators explained that she actually was a mime in college. She put herself through college by being a mime, which is so interesting, and we got a lot of awesome feedback from these highlights, which was great, and we got engagement as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, what was the most useful criticism you've ever received from an immediate supervisor, and how did you embrace this feedback and achieve a positive outcome from it?
I would say the most useful would be, well, I was in a previous job, and there was an opening for the shift lead position, and my supervisor kind of set me aside and told me that would be a great position for me to apply. So I thought about it, but I ultimately decided that being a full-time student, I wouldn't have time to take on that extra responsibility. Really, it was just me getting in my own way, but that's what I decided. And he actually sat me down after the fact and talked about the importance of goal setting and really thinking about where I saw myself in the future, because he thought that it was something that I lacked when deciding not to go for the shift lead position. So I did. I started making goals for myself, and I was actually able to get more organized, both professionally and academically, but also more involved in school, more than taking on more time, I guess, than I would have taking the shift lead position. So it was a short conversation, but it was really helpful in getting me, I guess, on a roll and finding where I wanted to be.
Okay. So just curious, did you end up taking that shift lead?
I didn't, no, because we had our conversation after. Somebody had already been chosen, but he just wanted to sit me down and ask really why I didn't go for it.
Okay. What do you feel you have to offer above the average employee when it comes to accomplishing your daily responsibilities and goals? Can you share a specific example?
Yeah, so I would say I am pretty competitive with myself. I always am trying to improve and find things to improve about myself. So recently I was asked to do a painting for a close family friend, and this is the biggest piece that I've ever been asked to do. But I decided to take it on, and I had to really prioritize my daily goals. So that's one thing that has really helped me, is just being able to decide what is most important for me to do every single day, which has actually made me a little more disciplined and able to finish everything that needs to be done. So I was actually able to do the painting on time. They loved it. I was able to finish it while also staying on track with my job and my school responsibilities. And I think that it's really because I'm disciplined and always finding better ways to do the things that I need to do.
Okay. Describe a time when you elevated the level of value you brought to a customer over time. How did you accomplish this?
Well, when I first started working at my custodial job, we were very, very understaffed. I was one of 2 employees. So when I started, I actually had to work almost double the hours that I originally had to, just to make up for the jobs that we didn't have. And even then, I couldn't finish all the jobs, right? So I had to learn how to prioritize and make sure that the school still looked and felt clean despite our lack of workers. And I started getting compliments from the faculty members around the school saying that the school looked great. It had always been understaffed, but because I really put an effort in prioritizing and making sure that the things that really needed to be done got done, it really made a big difference in the school. And then when we were finally actually adequately staffed, I think that standard stayed, so we still receive compliments all the time, and they can still see that we care about what we're doing.
Nice, good for you. Can you recall a time when you were less than pleased with your performance? What did you do? Can you recall a time when you were less than pleased with your performance, and what did you do about it?
Yes, so when I first started the student government position, the Chief Inclusion Officer position, I faced a lot of role ambiguity, because it was a brand new position. They were really counting on me to bring forth my experience as a student in building the framework. But it was very intimidating for me, so instead of facing it head on, I tried to avoid it as much as possible at first. And it was just the summer, so we weren't expecting to do a lot, but I still wanted a plan and get things going for the school year. So when I finally started meeting with students who I would be working with that year, and seeing how excited they were about it and how much they were counting on me to guide them, it really motivated me to work a little harder. It made me see that I hadn't been doing what I should have been doing, because I really did care about this position. So I started scheduling meetings with faculty around school that had experience in diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. I started researching what other universities were doing to support their students, and that really helped me in establishing the framework and to get things going.
Okay. Now describe your level of competitiveness. Tell me about a specific situation where your competitiveness helped you achieve better results than your peers.
Yeah, so I would say I'm quite competitive in my custodial job again. We cycle through weekly positions, and they all take about the same amount of time. So what I started doing is I started a competition just by myself, where I would try to finish faster than my coworkers. And it took some time, but eventually I found a lot of ways to go faster. So even if it went down to what order I cleaned the classrooms in, or memorizing which teachers stayed after school, and skipping those wings and coming back later towards the end of my shift. Little things like that helped me go faster and finish before my coworkers. And what this gave me time for is to do cleaning that wasn't part of our normal routine. So like mopping a classroom, or folding laundry, or stocking our shelves. It really made just a small difference, but enough so that teachers would notice and say, wow, my classroom was mopped this week, instead of waiting for, you know, a big long break that we had in our work. And it really made a big difference.
Okay. Think of an example when one of your customers was not pleased with something you or your team did. What was the situation and how did you recover from it?
Well, as a student government leader, students really depend on us to represent them and do what's best for them. So I would say it was 1 to 2 months into our positions this year. We started getting a lot of negative feedback from groups on campus saying that we weren't showing adequate support for an underrepresented population on campus. And though we had individually shown our support, you know, on our social media and in person, we failed to realize, I guess, the importance of showing that using our platforms that we were given as student government leaders. So finally, when we realized that they were concerned about that, we came up with a statement. I helped draft up a statement that we put out, but we didn't want it to be performative. We wanted them to know that we genuinely cared about, you know, being there and supporting them. So I invited them to sit on a committee where we discussed issues of how we can improve the college experience, particularly for underrepresented students. And we still meet every other month and are coming up with great solutions thanks to everyone who's in the committee.
Okay, now give me an example of a time when you successfully persuaded your peers to change their minds and follow your recommendations. What was the specific situation and results?
Well, this instance was in one of my classes. We were working on a group project for a midterm. We needed to come up with a market development plan for Costa Rica. And we were having a tough time figuring out what service or product we wanted to develop in Costa Rica. But ultimately, somebody made the executive decision to just look on Amazon and find, you know, some of their best sellers and pick from there. So we did. But after some thought and some more research, I found that a more thoughtful and relevant service would be ancestry DNA testing. You know, given its popularity not only in the U.S. but in surrounding countries, I thought it would be a great addition to Costa Rica. So I knew that because we had already chosen the other one, it would be a little harder to persuade them. So what I did was I did, you know, some of my research. I condensed it into just a mini presentation and I showed it to them. I showed them where I found, you know, certain data points that would make it successful, and they really liked it. So we ended up going with that instead, and we actually got full points on our midterm, which was great.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, share a time when you were able to directly attribute your probing skills to solve a problem with a difficult customer.
Well, I worked at a call center, and I didn't necessarily deal with difficult customers, but I did deal with difficult sales representatives. We had sales representatives, door-to-door sales reps, call in and place orders for customers. But they were out in the sun all day, you know, sometimes with little luck. So when they would call, they would very likely be short with whoever was answering the phone, you know. And I got a particular call one time where the sales rep couldn't get his order filling app on his tablet to work. And so normally when that happened, we couldn't do much about it. It was more of a waiting game. But I still tried to do my best in helping him despite him being short with me, because I knew that I didn't want to escalate the situation. I had to be professional and calm. So I did ask him questions. We tried to figure out if there was maybe another solution. Ultimately, we just had to redo the order on my end, and which was, I guess, upsetting for him because it does take a little longer. But in the end, he ended up apologizing for being so short with me, and we got that figured out. Just, it was important to keep calm and just know that being professional was first before any kind of feeling.
Okay, now tell me about a time when you identified a new, unusual, or different approach for addressing a problem or task. How did you come to this solution, and what was the outcome?
Well, when I was a senior in high school, I was the yearbook index editor. So this was also a brand new position. It hadn't been a priority before because it was very complex, you know, keeping track of 2,000 students. But essentially my job was to make sure that each student was represented more than once in the yearbook. as well as creating the index at the end of the book. So at first I went with the process that was used the years before, just having a giant file with everyone's names and putting a page number whenever we knew somebody's names. But I thought that this wasn't efficient enough because the pages were constantly being changed. So there was a due date and pages would be turned in, but they would still be changed after the fact, despite maybe thinking that they were permanent then. They changed up until the very end, until we had to turn in the yearbook. But what made it a little more efficient was when I created a spreadsheet that not only kept track of what pages students were on, but what pictures students were on in which pages. So whenever one picture was taken out of a page, we knew which picture it was, and were able to replace it with whatever other picture it was, which made it a lot faster. So they actually ended up using it for future years, for I think the past 2 years, and it really helped establish the framework for that.
Now I want you to tell me a little bit more about your student government position. Is there anything you do that you think would be similar to this job?
Yeah, so like I said, as a student government leader, we represent students and we welcome as much feedback as we can get because we want to make everyone's college experiences better. I focus more specifically on underrepresented populations in the school, but you know, this finding feedback from these students really, I think, will make my position here stronger because I am already working with groups all around the university, so I know what it's like and I already have several connections. So when I do need to go out and find information, not only do I have experience finding information and research, but I know who I'm going to.
Okay. So I think those are all the questions I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes. So what kind of, how is performance, I guess, measured here at this organization?
Okay, so here we meet quarterly, and we set realistic goals, and once you reach those goals, we basically just go from there and setting new ones.
Awesome, that's great. And I have a follow-up question. Who will my position be working with?
If you do get the job, you will be working with me and another team of 5. So
Okay,
we'll be 6 total.
great. That's awesome.
Okay, anything else?
No, I'm just really excited to be considered for this position. I think I have the qualifications fulfilled as well as additional experience that would be very helpful with this position. So thank you for your time, Lucy.
Thank you. We'll get back to you within a week, whether you get the job or not. We'll reach out, okay?
Thank you. Nice
Great
meeting you.
you.